everybody, and welcome to Challenge Accepted. I'm Thomas, and I'm here with Frank.
Hey guys.
And today we are talking about a Marvel staple and now a show that's come out on Disney Plus that ties directly to this movie. We're talking about Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and we have Marvels coming up later on this year. I said Marvel as in the Marvels
Nice.
coming up later this year.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yeah.
Yeah, something else is coming up in the show as well.
Yeah.
So, and what we're
So
about to
it,
talk
it's
about.
it's a big time to be familiar with Captain Marvel, and very good character and a lot of side characters related to her, so it's good time to kind of invest in her. We should go over some of her comic books at some point and look for some good comic book runs. If you guys have any suggestions for good Captain Marvel comic book runs, please let us know. We would like to dive into it a little more.
Absolutely.
All right. Before we get started, I do want to throw out a tweet that we did earlier. We asked you guys what would you guys grade the Secret Invasion premiere? Overwhelmingly B ranking or grade was it? So 58%
Oh,
of people said B, 33 said A, 8% said D, and nobody said C. So we got some haters with the D, but that's okay. We understand.
haters
But
with the D. That's hilarious.
haters with the D.
Uh, but yeah, for me, I really like the Secret Invasion of it all. But
Yeah,
it's probably I liked it more because we watched Captain Marvel, and I
true.
kind of got an understanding again of the character and just where we first meet her, and then where we see Fury first, and then where he is now in the Secret Invasion of it all. That was really great. And I will say before we go too far, like I was one of the haters of Captain Marvel
Yeah.
initially, and it was nothing to do with Brie Larson or any of that. It was just I realize what it is now after we rewatched it, and it's the third act of it all for me. But the way this movie starts out and the way we're introduced to the character and everything is awesome. But before we get too far into this, do you want to break down this episode?
Yep, it's my turn to do the breakdown, guys. Let's get started. I got my timer ready to go, and I wrote it all out, so like I'm super prepared.
Ooh, there you
Here we
go.
go.
Let's see if we actually use it.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, here we go. We start off with a young Carol Danvers, who meets a boy named Jan Rog. It'll eventually become her mentor. Verse, we're gonna be calling her Verse for a lot of this.
Yeah,
I don't like
theaters.
the name; it bugs me. But anyways,
Yeah.
we see later on she's a member of the Kree Star Force, and they're sent on a mission that's inhabited by Skrulls, a shape shifting alien race. During this mission, Vers gets captured by Skrulls led by Talos. I think it's Talos at this point, who try to extract her memories, and in doing that, she ends up learning a lot about herself in doing that too. Vers escapes the crash and gets crash lands on Earth, specifically in L.A. Vers meets a young Shield agent named Nick Fury, who becomes her ally, and this is very de-aged Nick Fury.
You look good.
Yeah, he did. Vers and Fury investigate the hidden scroll base in Louisiana and discover the scrolls are looking for a scientist named Wendy Larson. Uh, the two then go to Project Pegasus, which we see that Larson is tied to. It has a secret research facility where we learn that Larson is actually Marvel, a Kree scientist, which I know is a big departure from the comic book. Vers discovers she is actually somebody named Carol Danvers, and the Kree, led by the Supreme Intelligence, manipulated her memories and her powers. The two find the Marvel's hidden laboratory orbiting around Earth, where she developed the Lightspeed engine that Carol eventually absorbed the energy from. The two, oh shit, I'm running out of time. They end up fighting the Kree Star Force. We see Carol unlocks her full potential and becomes Super Saiyan, and we find out the cat's more than just a cat. And at the end, everything's fine. Oh my god, I ended up going. See, I can't write it down. I'm not writing it down
Oh
again.
yeah. Hey, yeah. I gotta invest in like whatever those things are called, the time sand thingies.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, you knocked it out of the park, I thought. Yeah. So you're right. I want to go back to one of the first things you said, and I'm just going to get a little bit of an irritation out the way because you were talking about the veers of it all, right? And
Yes.
that was the thing because we know as comic book fans, her name is Carol Danvers.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like 90% of the movie she's called Veers, and that is a little bit of an irritation because like we know who she is, but the character doesn't know who
Mm.
she is. And like that is like an interesting thing. At first I didn't really like how overconfident she was without knowing who she was. And I think that was
Yeah.
a little bit of an irritation the first time I watch it. Now when I watch it, I don't have that at all. Like it makes a ton of sense because at the end of the day, she was confident in her fighting ability. I mean, she was this insane Air Force pilot. Goes up into space, like has to be confident in herself. I liked all of that, and it hit so much different now. Yeah, I think I judged it too harshly, and because it wasn't what I was expecting the first time I watched it. What can you remember when you first watched it? What you thought?
Oh, we hated it. We hated it a lot. Yeah.
Okay, that's
A
how you
lot of
really
that is
feel.
because, well, I mean, to be honest, like it's because we know who she could be, and so it was like it was so frustrating to watch how slowly she was realizing her full potential and not trusting the Kree. Like that's the other thing too is the entire time it's like pro Kree propaganda, and
Yeah.
the whole time we're like, no, you can't trust Skrulls or Kree. They're both bad for us. Like just get away from everybody.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of another thing too. That was me and Squeaks were. I remember like we were just like, can you believe this shit? Like back and forth the entire time in the theater watching this. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
and I don't know. The Vers part of it too was also just so stupid. Like, oh wait, her name was cut off, so Dan Vers. Oh, okay. It just felt
yeah.
like, well, I'm not 10. You don't have to do that.
Right, like yeah, and again, not hating. We're just gonna get some early criticisms out of the way because from
Exactly.
here on out. I think it's a ton of positive, but
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, it's just it felt like it was supposed to be this big reveal, but it doesn't hit like a big reveal because we
No,
know her name. It's like
exactly.
it doesn't. It's not like oh my god, whoa! It wasn't like the Bourne Legacy or something. It's like we already know
Yeah.
who this person is.
I don't know if Marvel could ever really hide something from us like that. Like, I don't know if Marvel can do a big reveal on us, unless it's something like surprise Tobey Maguire's in the Spider-Man as well, which even that we pay attention to filming so much we kind of knew is coming.
Right.
But
The
it has to be
only
something kind of that scale, not so much like in story based surprises, you know?
True. Yeah, I think the only thing recently that surprised me, and also surprise, surprise, ties back to the Marvels, is the clandestine as the villains. I thought that
Okay.
was I
Yeah.
never really knew if they were actually villains or if they were going to be a just like a red herring. We think they're one thing, but they're
Yeah.
not. So the same thing with the scrolls in this case. And at first, when I watched this movie, I thought in my mind the scrolls were always bad guys because I had always tied them to the Fantastic Four and the villains and super scrolls, right? So I had
Right.
always thought of them as evil. And so when in this movie they flip it around and they're surprised they're good guys, that really threw me off. But also, Ben Mendelsohn is Talos. So when
He's
you
so
get
good.
that, Ben Mendelsohn, man, oh, I love me some Ben Mendelsohn, along with the Samuel L. Jackson of it all. But yeah, such good acting, such good choices for these characters. I love that we also get this lays the groundwork for good scrolls and like sections of scrolls. Like I like that.
Right, because the scrolls are a very big community. Well, they were, and so yeah, there are good and there are bad, and we see that with Secret Invasion. Like I think Captain Marvel was saying, "Hey, look, the scrolls may look like villains, but really they're just refugees trying to find a home." Then Secret Invasion is like, "Okay, now take that information you already learned. Now let's elevate it to like, they're not everybody's one way or the other, and some people, even the ill-intending." Like the scrolls that are bad in Secret Invasion are trying to kill all of humanity. They're bad, but also
Hmm.
their reasoning for it isn't terrible. It's like because they want to find a home and they think this is the easiest way to do it. So, I mean, you kind of get it. Like just same thing with Thanos. Like Thanos was trying to save the universe. He's just gonna
Yeah.
kill half of it for it, you know.
Just yeah, his methods were probably yeah, not kosher.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we get to see something pretty cool too. We get to see Hala, the capital city of the Kree.
Yes.
I don't exactly remember which planet it is in Guardians of the Galaxy that the Nova Corps are on,
Mhm.
but we kind of get yeah, we get our first little taste of is that the Kree or the Nova Corps different? Now I'm
I
losing it.
they're definitely different in the MCU,
Hmm.
but for some reason I'm thinking they're not in the comics or something like that. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Cosmic Marvel is definitely a crapshoot. That's a tough one.
Right.
They're
Right.
like
And then
Galactus,
that's
just come in and clean everything up.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I don't know, were you a fan of the cosmic Marvel universe growing
Uh,
up?
oh, outside of Thor, no. I liked when Thor
Mhm.
went in there and just messed up. Like Beta Ray Bill is dope as hell, but that's as cosmic as I liked.
Right,
Really.
exactly. Like I had some passing familiarity with the character of Captain Marvel. I had no idea who the Guardians of the Galaxy were when that movie
Nobody
was announced.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. And so this whole side of the universe, I wasn't initially into anyway. But I think that this set a good job up of this eternal battle that's been going on from the Kree and Skrull. So
Yeah.
much so that the the Kree will follow the Skrull anywhere to try to wipe them out. And
Yeah, it
yeah, I
really
don't know. How
sets up
did
the
you
Kree
feel
to
about that?
almost be like space Nazis. Like the way that they're trying to
Ooh,
wipe a race out, like not just beat them in a war, they're trying
right,
to exterminate them. It was like, okay, so Kree are bad people.
right.
There is no question on that. I don't think that as much as the Skrulls are shown as bad to get redemption, I don't think there's any part of the Kree that have gotten redemption yet. Maybe we'll see that in Secret Invasion. Well, I don't know if Secret Invasion is
Ooh.
a place for, but maybe Marvels.
Yeah, maybe the Marvels, but we do see that Monica Rambeau is fighting some Kree on one of those planets as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
So they're probably still bad. They're probably still space Nazis.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the Kree unit is awesome that we get to see that Veers is with,
Hmm.
and it Jan Rog is played by Jude Law, the incomparable Jude Law. We
Yeah.
get man, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he was in Shazam. He was in
His
uh,
character's name is Korath. We'll go with that. But it's
Korath.
Hansu, Digimon Hansu. I always say Digimon. It's not Digimon.
Yeah,
But
Jamon,
yeah,
I think it is. Yeah,
Jamon
he's
probably Hansu.
amazing, dude. I love that guy. He's
Yeah.
always like whatever he plays, he he's very convincing, and I love it. And
Yeah.
I love how literal he is in this role. Like we get to see it in Guardians of the Galaxy, and that he's the same. We get to see his origin story, so to speak, in Captain Marvel, which is cool. He has
Yeah.
those badass swords in it too. I love that. We also get our first taste at Gemma Chan, her character,
Hmm.
and Minerva,
Minerva.
and
Yeah.
super badass. But I love that anytime you have this gun and you get all the targets, and before you shoot the shot, it tracks all the targets. You shoot the shot, and then it like zip lines to all of them. Oh, I love that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
such a cool
I
cool
like when
power.
to me the cooler version of that is the whistling arrow from Guardians. I just love that. And
Yeah.
then you just see like do, 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 hit everybody. Like that's so cool.
Oh
That's such a
man,
cool effect.
it's so good. I know. Now we keep saying how Guardians of the Galaxy tops Captain Marvel, but yeah.
Well, speaking of Guardians, we also get our first look at chronologically of Ronan played by Lee Pace in this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Lee Pace comes back. That's so true.
Yeah.
I love Lee Pace as well. Great in Foundation
Yeah.
on top of it too, which is an awesome sci-fi show. But yes, so there's a lot of connecting parts to this, right? And
Hmm.
I remember thinking too, okay, we got Infinity War and we're gonna get Captain Marvel, and then it was boom, Endgame. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what can Captain Marvel bring that is going to change up the way we look at Endgame. And I don't want to get to the third act yet because I want to stay on all the positives here. And the third act for me is where it kind of falls apart a little bit. But yeah, in that first part, her figuring out or like crashing on Earth and in Blockbuster, no less, with a True
I
Lies
I
poster.
live tweeted this whole thing and like the blockbuster part, I was like, anytime they have to just show like nostalgia, they always use a blockbuster. And there's so
Right,
many other
right.
businesses that like and then I was saying like Radio Shack, Circuit City,
Yeah.
Sam Goody, all these other
But
stores, but then sure enough there's a Radio Shack too. It's like, oh,
yep.
okay, well at least they use that.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. He's like, where can I go for communication? And it's like, boom, Radio Shack, which is where you went, right? I mean, like,
Dude, Radio Shack was awesome. It had like every cord, every little plug that you could ever
exactly.
think of was in this little store. It was and very expensive like RC cars too. It was so weird.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it was, and that's literally all I went in there for. Like, I
yeah.
never had to buy, or I needed that cassette to iPhone or to,
Classic.
yeah, yeah, remember?
That was a cornerstone of their business. It was like,
Yeah,
hey, you got
yeah,
an old car and you want to use your iPhone? There it is. What a weird technology that is too. Like the kids nowadays don't know what it's like to like balance an old CD player so that you can like play it in your car.
yeah.
Oh man.
Seriously, man. So all of that, amazing, amazing nostalgia. We then
Yeah.
see a de-aged Samuel L. Jackson again, a beginning Nick Fury. He's just Agent Nick Fury at this, and
Right.
getting to see a little bit of his foundation and see him early on was so cool. Like you get to see a little bit of his world kind of crashing where he realizes that there's aliens too, and we
He
also get.
handles it very well though. Like that's definitely Nick Fury's move is like
Mhm.
we also see Coulson in this too, and I think Coulson trusts Nick a lot in this, but we see how well Nick Fury does with I mean, I think what like maybe in the span of 2 or 3 days, He's like, okay, aliens exist. Here's how I help. Oh, I chose a side in this war. Boom. Protectors initiative or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
super cool how fast he
Backspace,
goes.
backspace, backspace. Yeah,
Yeah.
Avengers Initiative. Yeah, for sure. And we also get to see the foundation of why Fury trusts Coulson, right? I mean, Coulson, they have this unspoken relationship, even though he's the Rook, Coulson at
Yeah.
this moment, right? But they have this good rapport right off the bat, and that's awesome. I love it. I'm like a sucker for Phil Coulson. I watch a lot of Agents of Shield. Just I was like, man, it's the one part of the MC universe I haven't touched, even though I don't. Marvel will not say it's canon up until this point that we're recording. They have
Mhm.
still not said Agents of Shield is canon yet. It is on Disney Plus now. So you tell me. I mean, the
I
the
don't know.
verdict's
Yeah,
out.
I haven't watched it, but from what I know of it, I think they have to. I think they have to admit a few things before they can allow. Like I think they use the Terrigen Mist in it, right?
Yeah, they
So they have
do.
to like, hey, Terrigen Mist is actually a thing, which their Inhumans movie didn't mention Terrigen Mist really. And the other thing is, I know they use a really badass version of Ghost Rider, which I think is the Ghost Rider they should use in the movies, by the way.
A
But
hundred percent.
so
That actor who plays Joel's brother in The Last of Us, or
mm,
Pedro Pascal's brother, that
yeah.
guy incredible. He's such a good Ghost Rider. Like one of the I will say this. It's like my favorite Ghost Rider that I've ever seen on screen. And honestly, like I'm way more of a Robbie Reyes fan than Johnny Blaze. But anyways, digress.
I love
So
Johnny Blaze because I grew up just like freaking loving Daredevil or Daredevils,
yeah,
and
Daredevils.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so I'm a big Johnny Blaze fan because like my grandpa had a bunch of Evil Knievel memorabilia and stuff like that, so he was always so much just the same thing.
Mhm.
But I think Robbie Reyes would do freaking great. Like I think honestly, let's get both of them together. That's where it's really cool because there is a point where Johnny Blaze becomes Cosmic Ghost Rider, I think it's called, and
Mhm.
so like yeah, let's do that. That would be so neat.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we get this awesome tie-in between all these different intersecting places and universes and different
Yeah.
timelines in the MCU going on. We get to see she's discovering who she is. She realizes she's from Earth, and it starts piecing it together. And her one friend, uh,
Maria.
there is a tie to Maria Rambo, and
Yeah.
she is in New Orleans. So now they know that they need to go to New Orleans.
By far my favorite part of this movie is how much Uncle or Aunt Carol and Monica get along. Knowing what's
Right.
coming up in the future. I'm like, good, I want them to establish that. And Marvel announced to me at the time of watching this movie the first time. Now looking back at it, was like, that's a big one. Is the fact that these two have this real like she's the cool aunt and Monica's like already really smart on this kind of stuff. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, cool. They established that early on. And then with the time dilation or whatever that comes up, we see that they're not very far different in ages modern day, but you have to remember that
Oh,
it's going forward. That's
time
crazy.
dilation. You know what? I never thought of it that way. And of course, I mean, we talked about Interstellar and everything. Of course, the time dilation. Because I always wonder, I'm like, why does Brie Larson, like, or why does Captain Marvel in this universe never age? But yeah, it's because of that. The time dilation. Duh.
I always
I thought
assumed it
it,
was that, but yeah.
yeah, I associated it with her powers. Like, her
Yeah,
powers
that
just
could
stopped
be
her from
exactly it
aging.
too. Who
But
knows? Her powers
the
are so
point.
OP, which again we'll talk in Act 3 about that, but it could do that as well. It might as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. So the whole time up to this point, it seems like the scrolls are kind of hunting her,
Yeah.
and we're like, okay, trying to figure out like what's their plan here. She sees Maria, she meets Monica, adorable kid. They have this awesome relationship, and
Mhm.
Maria's kind of like, why did you leave me? Or like, I thought you were dead. I was devastated. Now you're back, and then boom, Talo shows up in the house.
Ben does such a wonderful job of that entrance. He's like leaning against one of the doorways. He's just cool. And so you're
Yeah,
like, I don't know who this guy is, but I'm gonna root for him right off the bat. Like Talos does a really good job of kind of being like, and of course the way they do the whole thing, like my associate's outside with your daughter, that don't worry, she's not dead, but also it's a
yeah.
threat because she could be very quickly, is very cool move. It's like, oh man, that guy's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's interesting, right? Like, because they're really setting them up. Like, at this point, I was confused. I'm like, okay, why did he just show up to these people who want to destroy him?
Yeah.
And then, are they good? Are they bad? It's a really interesting twist in the movie, and now it sinks in better for me. But I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, "Ooh, I don't know if I like that." Now knowing what it leads to in Secret Invasion, I love it because you're like, "Oh, this is where Fury meets Talos, and this
Yeah.
is where the friendship begins." And oh man, I'm super for it, just
I
based
just
on one
posted,
episode.
I think on the challenge accepted Twitter feed, a clip of you talking about their friendship, and it was a really good clip about you talking about how like that's one of the highlights of Secret Invasion that hopefully they keep delving into.
You know, secret out there for all the movie studios. If you want me to like your stuff, just males being friends, guys being friends. I'm a
Arr!
sucker for that. Exactly, exactly. So yeah, it's really cool. You know, they come down to the whole point that her lab, Larson or Lawson's, I think it's Lawson's.
Lawson's, yeah,
Yeah,
LAW.
yeah, Dr. Lawson's lab is orbiting in space. And we also find out through, I don't know if this is later or not, but we also find out that Dr. Lawson was a Kree herself and
Yeah,
was not on the side of her own people. Like, what you guys are doing is wrong. Like, they're just trying to find a home. Yeah, we need to help them.
yeah.
So yeah, I love that. I think that's an interesting
She's an
concept.
activist amongst her people, which I think is cool to kind of celebrate a little bit because I think there's a lot of people out here who've been toting for a long time about like for our IRL stuff, greenhouse gases or all kinds of things like that have been like, hey guys, we need to worry about our emissions or stuff like that. Oftentimes they are cast aside or just kind of like ignored or whatever, just because it is very inconvenient.
Yeah,
And
right
here
off the
we have
bat,
one that's a hero in the MCU, really.
absolutely. Like right off the bat in real life, like if you come out with these crazy ideas, but you see that there's a problem, you seem like the nutty person out there. Like
Yeah,
this guy just like spouting nonsense and just craziness. But yeah, I mean, she's kind of shown that she's not necessarily tied to what the Supreme Intelligence is telling her to do either, which
yeah,
is a unique concept, right? I mean, the Supreme Intelligence, which is this AI unit for the Kree, basically dictates however they go about life, like
right.
where they decide to invade, how they decide to militarize, visit other planets, explore. I guess
Yeah.
It all comes down from the Supreme Intelligence directives.
Yeah, it's like ChatGPT 5.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly.
Shout out to Annette Bening though, because she does a good job of playing both Marvel, the sympathetic doctor or scientist who's just, feels bad that she got Brie Larson tied into this mess, and
Hmm.
also the Supreme Intelligent who's just like, I have zero fucks to give, and like
Yeah,
this is what we're gonna do. So she does a really good job of playing two different characters in the same body.
totally. Yeah, totally. So it's such an awesome character, and I hope that they bring back that idea of the Supreme Intelligence, whether in the
Yeah, that was one of the
Marvels.
things I was tweeting. Like, she's such a good character, and oh, I forgot she's still out there. It has been 30 years, so she's more pissed off than ever.
That's
You know?
true. Yeah, I feel like we're gonna get a nod to it in the Marvel. We have to. I mean, that has to happen. So we then go to space and we realize that there's a whole scroll unit up there, and Talos has
Mhm.
been trying to get there back to his family. And there's kind of like these refugee scrolls, and they're not warriors. It doesn't seem like they're just
No.
trying to like find a home, live their life. And yeah, this is the first point for me where you like feel really sympathetic for the scrolls. Like I feel really bad for them,
Yeah.
and then boom, we realize that the Kree are actually the bad guys because now they're in there and they're threatening to kill all the Skrulls,
Yeah.
kill Captain Marvel, and this battle ensues. And yeah, it's awesome.
It's a really
Like,
good job of explaining, like, because in the beginning of the movie, you're kind of rooting with the Kree the entire time. They're like, badass force, everything's cool, hell yeah.
right.
And then by
Yes.
the end, you're like, oh, wait, they're too far. And we need to protect those people who may not look like us. Like, literally, the scroll is that's their thing, is like they'll try to look like us, but they're
Hmm.
not us. But we need to protect them just because they're the lesser of the two, power wise. And so it was a really good job of kind of like explaining a lesson without shoving it down your throat either. Like by the beginning, you should be rooting for the opposite side. And I love when a movie carefully does that. And I think a lot of it's Ben's acting really helped us
Hmm.
kind of show like how cool they can be. And then when we see them huddled together, like almost shivering, you're like, oh my God, what can I do to help you guys? Then here comes that exact team you thought was badass coming in to
Right.
just wreck face. And you're like, no, 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 no. When before you were rooting for them. So it's a really
Rooting
good
for
job.
that. Yes, you're so right about that. They do a good job. Like the storytelling in this, I think is awesome from that standpoint. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the action of it all where at the end, where like you said earlier, when she goes Super Saiyan, I'm like, whoa, like that happened really fast.
Yeah,
And she's cutting through everything like a hot knife through butter. Like, yeah.
just too much. It's just too
Yeah,
much.
it goes so fast. But again, some of the relationships that I do like, and I wanted to highlight it too, because before we get too far, the Fury and the Carol of it all is so awesome. Like I
I
also
didn't
like,
care for it for the most of the movie. You liked it, huh?
well, I liked it when they were in the car on the drive together. Some of her lines, it feels a little cheesy, like
Yeah.
where he's like, "Oh, you're a bunch of noble warriors," like, noble Cree warriors or whatever she says. It didn't really stick with me, but I love Samuel Jackson and I love how much he seems to love acting with Brie Larson. It seems like he really enjoys playing alongside her.
Samuel Jackson is a phenomenal actor in every way, but I think he's best when he's with somebody else and doing the buddy cop thing. Pulp Fiction, Die Hard 3. He like does such a good job when he's with that other person.
Hmm.
But I felt like their chemistry was very manufactured in my opinion. When we saw
Oh,
like him with Ben in Secret Invasion, really good. Her
yeah,
with Monica or even Marie, forget, but
Maria.
Maria, that's very good. I just think like they do good job with other people. It's just together. Maybe it was just too many scenes together. To me, it felt like it was kind of all script reading in a way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we could jump into it. I wonder because let's put it, I'll say this in Endgame and post what we've seen from Captain Marvel. Like I've really liked that version. This is
Mhm.
probably the version of Captain Marvel I've liked the least, which is funny because it's
Agreed.
her movie.
Yeah,
Eh,
at the end of Miss Marvel, the way she's like, and like what we've seen from Marvel's the trailers and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, boom, there it is. There she's found herself again. I
Yeah.
tweeted this too during the live tweeting. I keep referencing that, guys, because you guys should go like those. And no, I didn't get any likes. No, but you could tell like I felt like she was suppressed her. She got her emotions or her reactions suppressed so much during the training with the Kree, and then by the time we're seeing her in modern day, current day, I think she's back to being Carol Danvers, who happens to have
Right.
powers. And I think that was I think there was something in there where she lost her memories or something like that, where she was smashed down, and then like all her confidence came from her abilities, not from being her. And I think now
Hmm.
her confidence comes from being her with abilities. I think is the
Yeah,
difference now.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it feels earned, and then I think that's the thing. I talk a lot about with my buddy Drake is telling in turn or telling and then showing. And up
Yes.
until that point, we hadn't seen a lot from her, and she was telling us how badass she was. We hadn't seen it. After Endgame, you see, yeah, but even at the end of this movie, you see how strong she is. Again, she
Yeah.
can blast through those Kree ships. There's that part where she stands off against Jan Rog, and he's like trying to get in her head, and she just one shots him. Just
That was
Indiana
one of my
Jones him.
complaints. He's in she elevates so fast, way
Right.
beyond him immediately. So I kind of think like he should have been the right hand man to Ronan. I think would have been better in this movie. This time I've noticed it like Ronan should have been the incoming threat the entire movie. Like, hey, there's an army coming that's gonna just erase Earth to get to the
Yeah.
scrolls. That way, the entire time Carol Danvers has to meet up to that, not have to pass a guy that she already was pretty much able to beat in a battle, anyways, in a duel
Hmm.
before all this. So all of a sudden, like every time she levels up, she's already beating him. She's already leveling up past the one bad guy we know. By the time
Hmm.
Ronan shows around, it's like, oh, here comes a fleet. Yeah, she's able to beat them now, but we didn't know about them this entire time. Like we should have known about them earlier.
True. Oh, I think that's a great point. I think I would have liked that as well. You're right. There was not one point in this movie where I felt stakes for her. Like I never felt
Yeah.
like she was in any real danger. And maybe and that's not saying that the movie didn't do a good job of showing it, but it just like we know the character's power level and power stats, I guess you could
Hmm.
say. And yeah, I just never really felt like she's a date. And so it's hard for me, this was kind of what I felt with Thor Love and Thunder too. And tons of funny moments in it. There's a lot of cool moments in it as well, but I never felt like either Thor or Captain Marvel in this movie were in danger because we know how OP they are.
Yeah. But with Thanos, I felt like okay. So let's talk about the final battle. I think it's definitely at that point now.
Yeah.
Carol's the weakness in the character is how strong she is, and the go-to move they use twice now in the MCU is where she just goes through a ship and destroys it. The first time she does it, you're like, oh shit, that's how strong she is, and they do it. And I think the best part in this movie, like with her powers, is when she like claps her hands or whatever like that, and you just see like echo off of her. You're like, oh
Hmm.
damn, that just shows how powerful she is.
Yeah.
And then Ronan's like, let's come back another day. And that's cool. But then when they use it again in Endgame, you're like, we just saw this. This movie was
Yeah.
literally the movie before Endgame. And so
Hmm.
they use the same exact ability again. I don't know. I wish there was a better way to. The problem is, I think she's so powerful now, you don't know how to display her powers anymore.
Right. And that's the thing. I think they did a good job in Endgame as well because it felt like she was kind of beating Thanos, but then he used the stones and it felt
Yeah.
like a more even match. It's the first time we see her character where you actually feel like, whoa, there's somebody who can stand up to her. And I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I hope that we see that more in the Marvels where there's an actual villain where you feel some danger for her.
I
Yeah,
just wish it
because
wasn't like every time, like, but his army is not like. I actually think Carol could have taken out all of Thanos' army. He's the only thing that would have stopped her, but the
totally.
army is nothing for her. And it's like, damn, we just had one of the most epic scenes I've ever seen in film when
Mhm.
everybody shows up and we get Avengers Assemble. And it's like, no, it's not Avengers Assemble. Carol Assemble is all you really needed. And then like the rest of the
Right.
Avengers focus on Thanos.
And like Scarlet Witch, right? You're like, yeah, you're like those two alone. We don't need the rest of you there. Although it's an awesome scene. I actually have no problem with that scene. It
Yeah.
doesn't bother me at all. Like it truly doesn't. I think it's cool. And like you have whether they're women characters or not, you have a bunch of badass characters
Yeah.
teaming up in this like really cool scene. Anytime you get like that pose or the slow motion walk with the Guardians or whatever,
You
I
mentioned
do
that.
like it.
Yeah, you mentioned
Yeah,
that. I do want to just jump in real quick because you mentioned that because infamously Endgame did the all female pose. And
right.
so it was like all female pose is going to handle it and they did a very good job. The other thing you mentioned I want to make sure to give a shout out to is Scarlet Witch is such a badass and she was beating Thanos, but Thanos beat her with the army. So really, if you have Carol and Scarlet Witch together, that's an unstoppable duo that easily would have been able to take out Thanos and his army.
Right.
And now I want
Yeah.
that. I want that duo movie a lot right now.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. I'm really excited for the Marvels, and I think that's the thing. Like we get, for the longest time, uh, what am I trying to say? Monica Rambeau is just a kid. She's just a
Yeah.
normal human. She doesn't become super powered till we see WandaVision, and
Hmm.
then Miss Marvel of it all, Kamala, is just a kid who's a super fan. She loves Captain
Yeah.
Marvel,
She's so fun.
right? So they're so humanizing, and I think that's the thing. And it's like we don't. It's so hard to relate, I guess, to this character and something because we know she's OP and she hasn't lived on Earth and she doesn't have any connections. She doesn't have family until she meets Maria and Monica. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great balance between all those characters for the Marvels. And again, watching this and seeing what they're doing in Secret Invasion with the Kree, with the Skrulls, it's gonna be like I'm so excited about that movie.
I think the one thing I want to see going forward, I do like the idea that Miss Marvel kind of brings Kamala brings Captain Marvel down a little bit just because of her fandom, but I would like to see something that shows that she like activates her god tier powers. Uh, with Dragon Ball Z, which I'm not so super familiar with, but they all have to go Super Saiyan. They have to
Hmm.
get that point,
That's
and I
definitely
think
a challenge coming.
yeah, yeah, I know, I'm sure. Um, I think we need it for that for Carol Danvers because I feel like at any moment she could just do whatever she wants. But I would wish that there was a way where like like Superman like has to like be thrown into space and he gets near the sun, then he absorbs all the sun and he comes back and beats
Yep.
General Zod into the dirt. That's kind of what I want for Carol, but she doesn't have that. She's just always next to the sun.
Right. I think they do this. They do a really good job of this in Midnight Suns video game. Captain
Okay.
Marvel's one of the characters you can play, and after you land so many hits, you can activate these cards called Going Binary, and it basically like powers up all your moves. So I think if they can demonstrate that or announce it or address it, the going binary of it all. And I don't know. I wish I had a better understanding of Captain Marvel from the comics. I knew the very superficial stuff, pilot,
Right.
could fly, energy blast, all that stuff, but I didn't really know her character. And yeah, if they can address that in Captain Marvel, I thought that video game did a really good job of showing that, and
That
it
is
made
a
me like her
good way.
character more. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And again, I want to reiterate if you guys know of a good Captain Marvel run, please let us know. We will read it for sure. Because I think that would, I want to know more before going into Marvels. I want to be like that guy pushing up my glasses, like, well, excuse me, and know
Yeah,
everything. That's my
right.
goal. So
Definitely.
yeah,
So one thing, oh man, and then this is not a criticism. Again, I like this movie more than I've ever watched it. I can say I didn't like it the first time I watched it, but now I do like it, seeing where the
fair.
character is gone and seeing where things are going. But the Flurkid and Fury's eye. What did you think about that?
Woo, yeah. My tweet about that, bringing that back up. 5 second added on scene to explain an iconic eye patch. Shaking my head, just because it was like
Right.
it felt so tacked on. It felt like they were like, "Oh hey, real quick, last second. What should we do with the eye?" Like it felt like that. And
Right.
the Flurkin's cool. Don't get me wrong, but man, boy, that just what a waste of Nick Fury. Like God, I don't know.
I know. And that was again, that was a huge letdown for me as well because the eye patch is iconic. There were some lines in the previous movies that he's like, people were asking him, "How'd you lose your eye? How'd you lose your eye?" And he's what I don't remember the exact wording, but whatever he was saying, you're like, "Damn, it must have been crazy."
Yeah.
And then the Fleur kid who he's befriended, he's been calling Kitty the whole time, just scratches it at the end. I really wish that they did something better that I wish he like lost it doing something heroic, like saving some scrolls or I don't know, something like that. I
Yeah,
wish
what
that
if
was
it
a
was
thing
something like the scrolls can't mimic injuries, so he purposely fucked up his eye to like show like I am always Nick Fury. Like that would be a
ooh
cool little move.
to like lead the Kree off. Yeah, that would have been cool. I would like
I don't
that.
know.
Or just yeah, just the Flurkin is going crazy, and so he dies on some scrolls to save it, to save them, and then. Yeah, and then it gets his eye. Like even that would be cool. Like you could still use the Flurkin of it all, but it did feel a little tacked on, and I wish they did something better with that.
I think they should. It would. I think it would have been a good move too, just to never explain it, kind of like they do with Joker, or like he has multiple backstories, kind of thing like that. Just like leave it like that. Like we don't need to know what Joker was beforehand because he's Joker now. Nick
Hmm.
Fury, we don't have to know why he has an eye patch. He could just have always had it or something like that. Would have been cool too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So at the end, we get Fury and Carol. They're back at the house. I love that. Okay, so I think this solidified how much I like their relationship. The dishwashing scene. So they're washing dishes. Talos is there with his family. That post dinner, and they're having this communication, or they're just chatting. And she leaves him the pager, and then he sings the Marvelette song.
Yeah,
And I love it. I'm like, damn, Samuel Jackson, like that guy could do anything. He even
I
has
love
like a
him.
great voice. And like I love that. He seems like he's having so much fun. Uh yeah,
Now I'm
that
thinking we do this all the time. I think we should do a Samuel Jackson month because it's like, man, there's so many good movies.
I feel like that would be a lot more palatable than Christopher Nolan month.
Yes,
Because
I definitely agree.
Christopher Nolan month felt like I just took the SATs 4 times.
Oh man, that was draining.
It
Needed a
was
nap.
brutal. Yeah, so and then the final scene from what I remember is Carol goes up to fly to the ship, and we see that the Skrulls are with her, and they both have promised that they're going to find the Skrulls a new home.
Yeah.
And then they fly off. Now, it just makes me wonder, seeing the first episode of Secret Invasion, like, why were they not able in a galaxy of hundreds, thousands, millions of planets? I mean, well, in our galaxy, right? I mean, let's just say thousands of planets. How could they not find a suitable planet? Like that seems pretty weird to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah,
hope that there's
it's
like a good excuse, like in finding you a new planet, we would have to mess up another ecosystem or something like that. Like
right.
give us some kind of high sci-fi thing. I think would be fun. Otherwise, don't be like, I don't know, it just didn't have the right sunsets or something like that. Like that doesn't. So
Right.
hopefully they find like a good high sci-fi excuse for us.
Totally. I mean, we even saw like we besides the Guardians of the Galaxy of it all, we've seen in Thor: Love and Thunder, like they went to. I mean, he goes to different planets and like, he's fine.
Mm.
Like everybody's breathing. It's sunsets, like you were saying. I mean, it all seems good. So I really need, yeah, it needs to be a really interesting concept, and yeah, they really make a big point to show that Fury is promising them a new planet, and that Carol promises it too. And then I know we get the Infinity War Endgame involved, but it's like yeah, please give us that answer in Secret Invasion. If
What
not,
if it's that they're just to interrupt you? Sorry. Okay. What
yeah,
if it's
no
like
worries.
the Kree keep finding them every time they try to find a new planet? Then we learn that it's because some of the Skrulls want to stay on Earth, so that they're constantly sabotaging it and like letting the Kree
Oh,
know that they're there. Because we know
like,
that there are Kree that want to take over Earth. Maybe they want to take over the Earth, not because they're tired of not finding home, but because they want Earth.
ooh, that'd be great. I'd like that. I like
Right.
that. I also don't know why Talos is back on Earth though. You know, like
They never explained that. Yeah, he's all of a sudden back on Earth. Everybody is.
right. So, I mean, much to be discovered in Secret Invasion, I think, and we're going to be going week to week through it and episode by episode.
Yeah.
And yeah, these are just questions that I wanted, like, that came up after watching Captain Marvel and are now still present at the time of Secret, as we're watching this Secret Invasion. It's like they got to answer those things. And I think it's going to be a giant miss for me if they don't answer those questions as we
Yeah.
watch Secret Invasion.
Totally agree with you. I think it's good. I want to hear everybody's opinions on this as well. What do you guys thought about Secret Invasion? Where can they go forward from here? I think that's really important.
Hmm.
Yeah. You ready for some fun facts?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we got a lot of good ones for this one. All right, so the most important one I think, and personally for me, is Stanley passed away while the film was being edited. As a result, Marvel Studios put together the special opening logo to honor him. So the opening logo
Oh.
for this is all Stanley based.
That's awesome. You know, I forgot about that and I was watching, I was like, what the heck? Like, all Stan Lee. And then I was thinking because Marvel, Disney Plus just released that Stan Lee documentary, I was like,
Mhm.
maybe they changed it for all the title sequences. But no, it's just for Captain Marvel. And that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
So more Stan Lee. When Stan Lee makes his cameo around 30 minutes in, he is seen reading the script for Kevin Smith's Mallrats, 1995, which is so classic.
I
I
love
know
that.
you're a fan. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, but when he passed, Stan Lee, Kevin Smith did this episode of Fat Man Beyond, an awesome podcast as well. But just talking about all the personal stories he had with Stan Lee, and they were just so sweet, and he was getting so emotional. And by all accounts, I mean, I'm sure he wasn't a perfect person, but he just seems like such an inspiring, amazing guy, and he was so kind to people. And obviously, he has this legacy of amazing characters. It just like, and seeing Stan in an MCU movie is in a cameo. It's just like that. Just I don't know. It just brings it together. You're like, this is an MCU movie, and
Yeah.
I do miss that now with the new movies.
Yeah. He was reciting his line, "Trust me, true believer," which he says in Mallrats. As revealed on Smith's YouTube page, so I wouldn't be surprised if you heard this, Stan's health was in decline and he could not muster his trademark enthusiasm. So the producers looped in Lee's unused audio from Mallrats.
No way, really?
Yeah,
Wow. Okay, I did not know that. That's awesome.
yeah. So that's just pretty cool.
No wonder Kevin Smith is like, yeah, he was on board with his movie from the jump.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. All right. So the cutout character that Carol, they keep saying Vers, I'm just not going to say it. Carol shoots in the Blockbuster store was originally supposed to be the Mask because he has a green face and she thought it was a scroll. But they
Wow.
couldn't get the copyright for it. They couldn't borrow it from Warner Brothers because it's a rival. So they ended up using Arnold Schwarzenegger's from True Lies.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I think
Eh,
the Mask would have been fun. I love the Mask as a kid. I used to watch that movie all the time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know. I thought True Lies was an odd choice. We're like
Yeah.
watching it back too, and that makes sense because it wasn't their first choice. Actually, I got one.
Yeah.
So, okay, in Captain Marvel, obviously, there's a cameo in the train station by a bespectacled, I didn't write this,
Mhm.
red-haired woman. That's Kelly Sue DeConnick, who not only wrote a series of Captain Marvel comics, but she also consulted on the film.
That's cool. I
So,
love when they do
yeah.
that, when they add the writers in there and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved it. Like during the Captain Marvel series, uh, I forgot what the lady's name is, but she wrote a lot of, sorry, Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
The lady who wrote a lot of Miss Marvel, she was like praising it. They were using some of her imagery from her comics that you could tell that they were pulling some of that. And she was just like speaking so highly of it. I loved it. And like Marvel was like retweeting her thing. It was just like, it's so great when the person who created something is like then credited for something everybody then enjoys.
Mhm.
And it's just like, yeah, I just love artist appreciation, I guess is
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say.
I think the most obvious blatant one is Dave Filoni being the Mandalorian all the time. And it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he
But
makes
he's
it.
doing it for himself. Like
But
he's like,
nevertheless, every time he's on screen, I'm
yeah,
like, there he is.
yeah,
That's
that's
it.
true. That's true. I
And the
mean, he's kind
cowboy
of creating.
hat.
Yeah, he's becoming his own Stan Lee in a sense.
That's very true. And John Favreau too. He just now died in that series, but he's been around for a long time in the series. So,
Yep.
yeah. All right, Samuel Jackson when he checks the scroll's junk beneath the sheet, that was improvised. He wasn't supposed to do that. They kept it in
Oh,
the.
that's awesome. I mean, yeah. some of the most like moments seem to be improvised, and yeah, it is weird, but it's also funny. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're like, I guess why wouldn't you check? Like, well, I want to see their anatomy. I thought that was interesting too. They're non-carbon based creatures, so I'm like, ooh, what are they made out of? That like
Yeah.
blew my mind for a split second. Where I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, yeah, it took me down a deep thought hole. I don't
So
know.
you got to check their junk. That's what you got to do. Brie Larson is very allergic to cats. So every time she has a scene with Goose, it's actually a puppet or computer generated.
Wow, no way. I was wondering about that. Okay, so my wife is deathly allergic to cats.
Oh, really?
And I kept thinking about like what if somebody on the crew was allergic to cats, or yeah, Brie Larson, one of the actors, did not know the whole time. Puppet.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right. I've got two more. Sorry, in the comic books, the cat. Oh god dang! In the comic book, Captain Marvel's cat is named Chewie after Chewbacca from Star Wars, but in the film, he's named Goose from Goose of Top Gun, and
Hmm.
she's like a pilot. So I thought I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. They still a reference.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I'm like, but I like Chewie too, and it would have been very nice because it would have been all in the Disney sphere. Like it would have been like, oh, Star Wars exists in Marvel, and I don't know if we've got confirmation about that yet.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. We also know that it was four different cats, by the way. So it was four different cats playing. That they had a pretty busy schedule. All right, last one. The security guard Captain Marvel speaks to at the beginning of the movie. He's a Marvel security director, Barry Kurtzit. So he's actually like the Marvel security director. He's
Yeah,
actually in charge of all security.
he's actually like Marvel's Happy,
Yeah,
which is cool. Yeah, I've heard that. I mean, he's been a part of every production. He's credited on so many movies, and it was like awesome that they're like, no, you deserve to be on screen. And if I'm not mistaken, I may be completely wrong about this. John Favreau, the whole idea of that character came from that guy.
I hope so. That's cool. Yeah,
That is, yeah.
I
So full
saw.
circle right there, man.
Yeah, speaking of John Favreau, I saw a clip, and it's one of those things where you reappreciate something you forgot was awesome before. But in Spider-Man two, I don't remember which one it was, Far From Home or something like that, where they're in
Yeah.
Europe.
Hmm.
That part where he's sitting there building his own suit in the back using Tony's tech, and like the way John Favreau's just looking at him, just being like, "Oh man, I miss Tony." I saw that clip
Yeah.
again. I was like, "God damn, it's so heartbreaking." Like you forget how much that movie is a remembering Tony Stark movie, and then you see that clip again, you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh man, I miss Tony too."
I know. That's a movie that's hard for me to revisit and watch because he's trying to be a good kid. He's trying to just be a kid,
Yeah.
and that movie, and then not think about his father figure, and it's just heartbreaking. And he gets his new father figure, and he betrays him. And Fury's also in that, but was that Fury a Skrull or was that actual Fury? I hope that
That
gets
one I
answered.
think is confirmed to be a scroll actually, but they
Oh,
did confirm that the
right.
one at the funeral was actually Nick Fury.
Right on. Okay,
I
I'm
just heard
glad you
that,
told
so
me that. That's a little side movie detail fact that you didn't know you were going to say, but I learned something for that, and I appreciate
yeah.
it.
This movie is better than I remember, but still not great, I would say.
Yeah, again, nothing on her character. Again, it's more, it could be tighter. And it's not one of my favorite phases 1 through 3 movies, but I don't know if we get to where we are. I don't know if we have Secret Invasion without this movie, so I appreciate it for that.
That, yeah, and also I think it just comes down to the fact that Captain Marvel's a hard character to make a movie for, and I don't think they nailed the threat in this movie. I don't think there really is a threat in this movie. Um, it's the wrong threat. I think Secret Invasion is using the right threat. That like scrolls can be anybody. That's more important. That's something that Captain Marvel can't fight. The fact that the president could be a scroll, that she can't fight that. But big ships that she could just eat like butter, cut through butter. It's not a threat to her. So it's just whatever.
Yep, 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 yep. You shouldn't be eating all the butter, but
Don't eat all the butter.
but yeah. So, Saw, do you want to do a review for this one?
Okay, yeah, sure. Captain Marvel is a vital link in the MCU chain, but might be its weakest link. The character, while very strong, might be not challenged by the threat of this film. I believe that this movie does get better over time, but misses the mark. There you go, something along those lines.
Yeah, agreed. I'd probably say as a standalone film, not one of phases 1 through three's strongest films, but as time goes on and more properties are added based off the foundation that this movie set, it becomes better and better. There's a lot to be said about the relationship between Captain Marvel and Nick Fury, and we get to see the origin of Nick Fury and the beginning friendship of Fury and Talos, which is awesome.
Yeah.
All in all, this movie seems to be great through the first two acts and seems to fall apart in the third act. But what it does for the future of the MCU is undeniable.
So, for just to kind of clarify, if you guys are long time, we got to find a name for our fans. Challenge accepted, heads. By the way, for your other show, Joystick,
Mm-hmm.
during the chat, I thought of it. You guys' fans should be called Stickers. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I usually say sticklers, and then
oh, that's even. I like the L. Yeah, that's good.
yeah, or we call them stickheads.
Stickheads.
Yeah.
Okay, both those replace mine. Damn it, those are both good.
Yeah.
But anyways, those who paid attention know that we're. Oh, wait a minute, they're supposed to be doing Twisted Pair. So we were gonna do that with Alan, but unfortunately he had some car issues and he's stuck like 2 states over right now. So we're rooting for you, Alan. He's doing Escape from Florida right now, and he's trying. uh, and so we'll have to eventually come back to him. It might be a couple months even before we get back to him because normally we would do it along with one of his releases. I do want to say he does have Horus in Hell, which is a comic book he wrote. I'll link to it in the description. Guys, go check it out. You don't have to follow the campaign if you don't want to, but at least check it out and see what you think. I am a big advocate for Alan and his work. He does a really good job. All of Top Hat Studio does. So go in the links below, click around, and follow it out.
Yeah, I completely agree. Second you.
Okay, so since this, I had challenged you to Alan's movie. I'm gonna say that Captain Marvel was my challenge then. So why don't you challenge me to the next movie or show?
Oh, didn't even think about that. Let's watch Gargoyles.
You bastard! I'm so happy you said
An
that.
episode of Gargoyles.
Okay.
You posted something recently, and I think it's from the main Geek Freaks page, but that I think there's a new comic run
Yeah,
that
that
they
was from
came
my
out with.
personal page, but yeah, the art that's really good.
We'll have to post which specific episode
I've
because
got an
I couldn't
episode for you right
remember.
off the bat right now.
Oh yeah,
Ready?
what is
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
it's the episode where they go to Australia, and it's all about them having to team up with one of their villains to fight um, this mechanical goo that's spreading through Australia and turning everything into like shine and perfection. But it's like embracing the imperfections. Really, that's a really good episode. Oh no,
Ooh.
okay. We're gonna have we'll find the I'll have the episode later on.
We'll post it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll write it in the review for this, and yeah, we'll go. So if you're not following us on social media, so that you can keep up to date, things are always changing on the fly, depending on schedules and guests and what we decide is a dumpster fire movie and what is not. But
Yeah.
yeah, follow us on there, and we will let you know which Gargoyles episode.
Sounds good. And then we also have clips coming out on our not only our Twitter but also the Geek Freaks Network TikTok account. So check that out too. And then listen along, guys. Tell your friends and family so we get more food donated to the food banks. Thanks for
Yep.
hanging out with us. Bye.
Aloha.